If you're gonna spend a lot of money on a new pair of football boots, you want them to be good. And unfortunately, not all boots are worth their price tag. So in this video, we're gonna be covering the best premium football boots on the market that are actually good value. And if you're interested in picking up any of the boots we discuss, I've got links to them in the description below with some discount codes. Now let's start things off with one of my favorite new boots, and that's gonna be the Predator Elite FT from Adidas. Now, for the sake of clarity, this is not to be confused with the Predator Elite that was released last year that did have a very similar look to these. However, there is a very different feel with this brand new model. I actually found that the Hybrid Touch 2.0 that was used on last year's Predator Elite felt a little bit rigid to the touch, and it was pretty constricting on feet as well, and I found the toe box to feel pretty narrow. However, they have changed the upper with this new version. Instead, they're calling this Hybrid Touch Original, so this is just almost like they're going in reverse because this is Hybrid Touch 1 and previously we had Hybrid Touch 2, but either way, the material is just a lot better. And when I tried on the Predators last year, they were about $260 for the version I got, and I just didn't really think that they were worth the money. Now this new version is going to go for $280 if you want to include that fold over tongue with the elasticated strap. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a ton of money for a pair of football boots, but at least in my opinion, this is going to be the best version of the Predator that you can buy on the market. It delivers a really iconic and nostalgic look, and as I mentioned before, the new upper is really comfortable and almost has a leather-like feel to it, even though it's a full synthetic. You're also gonna get those classic rubberized, grippy elements towards the front of the boots that are gonna help add a little bit more grip on your strikes. And for what it's worth, I found that the sole plate was pretty versatile as well, although it is intended for use on firm ground natural grass. I found that the studs, although they are triangular, are somewhat rounded, so I didn't feel that they were too aggressive for use on artificial grass. So while these are expensive, I do think they're one of the best Predators Adidas have released in quite a few years. Now before we move on, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Now as footballers, we obviously focus a lot on our physical health and fitness, but it's important to remember that our mental health is equally important. And both on and off the field, between your time at work, school, or at home, everyone's life can get pretty hectic. And reaching out to talk to someone can be a great way to get additional support. And that is where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that makes it easy for you to get the mental health support you need on your own terms. With BetterHelp, you can connect to a licensed therapist in the comfort of your own home through either video chats, phone calls, or messaging. And they have a network of over 30,000 therapists, so you can find the best fit for you. And if you're not satisfied with your therapist, you can switch at any time for no extra cost. So if you are struggling with your mental health or you just need a little extra support, I highly recommend giving BetterHelp a try. Go to betterhelp.com/upper90football or select upper 90 football at sign up for a special discount off your first month of therapy. Guys, your mental health is worth prioritizing, and BetterHelp is going to make it easy to do just that. Now let's get back into the video. So next up, we're staying with Adidas, but moving to their other flagship model, and that's going to be the F50 Elite. Now this is going to be another expensive football boot retailing for $260, but I think it does offer something that a lot of other Adidas boots and other boots in general just don't offer. Because the F50 Elite is truly one of the thinnest and lightest football boots I've ever tried on. And sometimes in the past when I've tried on football boots that have a razor thin upper, they can compromise comfort, but I actually think the F50s do wrap around your feet pretty nicely. You also get this sprint web coating throughout the surface of the upper that is going to give you a nice little bit of additional grip on the ball. And maybe one of the coolest innovations that Adidas came out with this model is this compression fit tunnel tongue they have. Essentially, it's just a fancy name for the stretchy material that runs throughout the center of the boots, and it just makes it really easy to get a comfortable fit every time you lace them up. But that being said, these boots are not going to be for everyone. If you want something with a little bit more padding, a little bit more protection, a little bit more softness to it, these probably aren't going to be the boots for you. But if you're looking for something that gives you that barefoot, almost second skin-like sensation, I would probably recommend the F50 over the Predator. Whereas if you want a little bit more structure and heftiness to your football boots, probably the Predator would be the way to go over the F50s. But both the F50 and the new Predator Elites are great football boots. It really just depends what you're looking for. Next up, we're moving over to Nike with the Phantom GX2 Elite. Now this one is a little bit controversial because I actually included this specific model on a previous video I made about certain boots that were a little bit overrated, but there are still some amazing features about this boot that I think make it worth considering. And also, the only thing that makes this boot overrated in my opinion is going to be the FG outsole that comes on the stock version, but that issue can be easily mitigated by buying these boots with the artificial grass variation. But really, the cool thing about the Phantom GX2 Elite from Nike is going to be that grip knit upper. Now, every company usually comes out with a new boot every year, and they say that it has a really sticky upper, that it'll give you more grip, that you're going to be taking free kicks like David Beckham, curling them into the far post. But generally, these are usually just small improvements, and sometimes they're just gimmicky. And when I first saw the newer Phantoms advertised a couple years ago, I honestly thought it was more of the same and that the new grip knit material was just going to be another gimmick. But my God, when I got these in hand for the first time, they are truly the stickiest football boots I have ever held. Now, similar to what we just discussed about the F50, these aren't necessarily going to be for everybody. I mean, when you're dribbling the ball in the Phantoms for the first time, it's noticeably more sticky and you can run the risk of getting the ball caught under your feet. But as with any football boots, you do get used to the touch and feel after a little bit. Now, I'm usually very hesitant to say that any pair of football boots is going to give you a big advantage when it comes to giving you more grip on the ball, but I will say that compared to other models, you're definitely going to get a little bit of added control with the Phantoms when you're taking something like free kicks or dead ball set pieces. Now, the Phantom GX2 Elites originally retailed for $260, but now that they've been out for a little bit, you can find them closer to around $220 to $230. And then of course, if you are able to find the artificial grass variations, I actually prefer these for use on both AG and FG. I just think that the Cyclone 360 stud pattern that they're going for on the FG version is a little bit too aggressive for my liking, and I just think it's unnecessary. I personally preferred playing in that artificial grass variation. I thought the conical studs allowed for more free rotation, but still offered me plenty enough traction. Next up, we're staying with Nike, but this time talking about the Tiempo Legend 10. Now, to this point in the video, we've only been talking about getting elite models, which are the most expensive tier of football boots you can get. But when it comes to the Tiempo, the Elites are going to retail for $220, and they are great football boots. But this is the first instance where I would genuinely recommend, even if you have a lot of money to spend, to get the Pro model, which is going to retail for about $130. And that's because having seen and worn both the Pro and the Elite versions of these boots, they are just so close. They're almost identical all the way from the upper to the knit inner liner to the heel area. And despite the fact that the Tiempo Legend 10 Pro in this emerald variation retailed for only $130, it was definitely one of the most premium football boots I felt over the past year. Nike is going for a synthetic leather type feel on this boot with their Fly Touch upper, and I really like how on the emerald version you get this cool diamond crosshatch pattern. The fit is going to be identical to the standard version of the Tiempos, but in my opinion the emerald is just way more appealing from an aesthetic perspective. The touch on the ball with the Tiempos is clean and sharp, and I think the upper has the perfect balance of padding and a really light stickiness to it. And then maybe my favorite feature of these boots is going to be that elasticated knit inner liner. It just provides a really consistent fit every time you put the boots on. I was personally sad to see Nike stop making leather Tiempos, but I was really impressed with these, and I would recommend you give them a try if you've liked Tiempos in the past. Next up, we're heading over to New Balance, starting with the Furon V7 Plus. Now, the Furon is going to be New Balance's answer to other high-end speed boots on the market, like the Mercurial from Nike or the F50 from Adidas. And over the past few years, I think the Furon line has been gradually improving, and I think the new V7 Plus is a slight improvement, especially in terms of overall build quality over the previous V7. Now, the V7 Plus is going to be one of the lightest football boots on the market, and I believe that the F50 Elite from Adidas is the only one that's lighter. It also has this asymmetrical lacing system that is going to give you a really clean matte striking surface. And then underneath that matte upper, you're gonna have a really stretchy knit material that's gonna wrap around your feet. And if you're a player with wide feet and you struggle to get a good fit out of boots from Nike and Adidas and Puma, then I would recommend checking out any boot from New Balance. New Balance boots aren't gonna be dramatically wider, but they just have a slightly different design to the way they shape their toe box, and in my opinion, I usually find it a little bit more accommodating than some other brands. And I found the fit of the Furon V7 Plus to be extremely comfortable. The only thing that I wish was different about these boots is that I wish there was an artificial grass variation, because the FG outsole that comes stock on these boots is very aggressive. Next up, we have another top-end New Balance boot, and that's the Tekela V4 Plus. Now, in terms of overall features, fit, and performance, I actually think that the Tekela V4 Plus is going to be pretty similar to the new Predator Elite from Adidas. And New Balance also added textural elements throughout the side of the boots to give you a little bit more grip on the ball. But as I mentioned, since the Tekelas are made by New Balance, they are going to have a slightly wider fit. And another thing I love about these boots is that they have one of the most well-rounded sole plates I've seen in a long time. I like how they have conical studs running throughout the center of the heel and the forefoot, but then around the perimeter of the boots, they have these shorter bladed studs that can be used to push off and get more traction. They're really well-rounded boots. I love them. And another thing I love about the Tekelas is that they always go on sale. The full retail price for the V4 Plus, I think, was $220, but you can very often find them on sale for closer to $160 to $170. Next up, I'm going over to Japan to shout out the Adler Henzo. Now, Adler is going to be probably the smallest company on this list, but they are definitely making some of the highest quality boots. And the Henzos that I have here are absolutely no exception. The leather that's used in these boots is some of the softest kangaroo leather I've ever felt, and the stitching is some of the most meticulous and well done that I've ever seen. I mean, looking at the underside of these boots, even the sole plate is stitched to the upper here, which really helps in terms of durability over the long term. This is also some of the thinnest leather that I've ever felt in a football boot, and if you want something that's truly going to just wrap around your feet like a glove and fit perfect as soon as you get them out of the box, these are a great pair of boots to check out. Now, one weird thing about them that I've mentioned before is that they do run incredibly long for some reason, so I had to go a full size down when I ordered these. I normally get a 10.5 US, and in these I got a 9.5, and the fit was perfect. And another thing, one of the coolest things about the Adlers is that they only retail for $150, which I actually think is almost underpriced for the quality that you're getting here, but they do ship out of Japan, so you have to tack on another $20 for shipping. So all in all, wherever you live, you can pick up a pair for about $170. But as I said, if you're interested in leather boots, these are definitely ones to check out. And continuing the trend of leather football boots from Japan, we can't make a list of premium football boots without talking about the Mizuno Morelia. Now, I think every offering of the Mizuno Morelia through the years has been impressive, but today Mizuno is even starting to modernize their line, so they have offerings that are more traditional and ones that are a little bit more up to date. Now, the Mizuno Morelia 2 that I have here is going to be a more traditional leather football boot in the sense that it is a little bit more heavy in weight compared to the more modern option. It's going to have a more plush and padded feel towards the toe box and the sides of the boots, and it's going to have this simple traditional U-throat lacing system. But even though these boots may have an old school aesthetic to them, they still perform extremely well and have a great outsole that performs great on both firm ground and artificial grass. It has a different feel to the Adler Henzo that we just talked about. They're similar boots that kind of have a yin-yang feel going between them. The Adler has a razor thin leather upper that gives you almost a sensitive barefoot feel, whereas you just get a little bit more softness and padding and plushness with the Morelia 2. And when I personally think of a classic leather football boot, this is usually the first one that comes into my head. But if you do want to check out some of the more modern options from Mizuno, those are also extremely great, and I've got one of them here in the Mizuno Morelia Neo 4 Beta. These are going to be a hybrid leather and synthetic football boot where you're going to get leather towards the toe box, then they're going to transition to a razor thin synthetic around the sides of the boots, and then have this soft, stretchy knit material running through the midfoot. And then underneath the boots, they also have a very thin, lightweight, and quite rigid sole plate as well. So if you want a slightly thinner upper from the Morelia line and you're kind of attracted to this more stretchy knit material that you get around the ankle, the Neo 4 Beta is going to be the way to go. Now, in terms of pricing, you can get the made in Japan version of both these Mizuno Morelia boots for around $280. Now, that's obviously going to be very expensive, but if you want to save a little bit of money and still get an extremely premium football boot, you can get the Elite versions for closer to around $180. The Elite versions, which are the ones I have here in my hand, are going to be almost identical in terms of feature set, fit, and feel, but they're basically just made in Vietnam instead of being made in Japan. But in my experience, anything Mizuno has been willing to put the Morelia label on has been an extremely impressive and very premium boot. And guys, that is going to do it for this video. If you guys think there are any boots that I missed, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.